I was speaking to somebody, can't remember who it was, the other day, and they were saying how he was tuning in to this girl locked in a cell in the middle of Delhi, Dubai, or whatever, right? So he trusts the feeling. He doesn't know where it's coming from. Is it right or wrong? He books a plane ticket. He goes to the location where he's seeing this girl, and he's got no data, nothing. He's just going with feeling. No girl here. So there's a girl out the back. I've come to get her. And so he fights his way through. Eventually, he finds that there's a girl in the back who has been like kidnapped for months or whatever. So this person was able to remote view this girl in a cupboard from the opposite side of the world with no information on where the fuck this person is, just going with feeling.
I was studying all about the situation in the world, say about 15, 20 years ago, but I didn't have a date. But I knew that something was happening, like this huge change that we're all going through, you know, like what's happening, like the system is breaking down and new earth is being built. But I didn't know when it was going to start happening. And then I started studying astrology. Yeah, this was about 15 years ago. And suddenly I had a date. The same information that I had researched independent, this is a word that I can't say, came up within the astrology world. They have been talking about this situation for about 40 years.
Whether I'm ill, whether I've got COVID, whether I broke my leg, I can't just rely on my mum or my partner to do it. And that was all playing in. She's mothering me. I can't be with somebody who mothers me. I want to be the provider. So how do I do that? Step up into the masculine role.
The Akashic Records is the book of everything that's ever been and everything that ever will be. Every single thought, word, action is written there. Connect to that Akashic Records and be able to answer questions, say for that girl in Delhi. It's just, I've got goosebumps now.
So we met at an ecstatic dance in London a few months back, and I was with my friend, and it finished at about 10 o'clock, and we were walking to get some food, and we walked past this pizza shop, and we thought, nah, it's a bit shitty. And then we walked past this typical kebab shop, and we looked in, and my friend was like, Oliver, we can do better than that. And it was just a shitty kebab shop on the corner. And then we walked past this really nice Turkish Greek restaurant, and then we see a few people inside from the dance, and we're like, oh, they were at the dance. So we go in and we're like, do you mind if we join you? And then we end up sitting down for the next 3-4 hours and having food. And then I started talking to you, and we had a very deep, powerful, long conversation. And we got onto the topic of astrology and how everything is basically controlled by astrology. And at that point, I was on the way to Portugal to meet a twin flame, or my twin flame. And it was like the rekindling phase. And you said that you think that we'll end up going to Costa Rica together, because that's where she actually wanted to live. So at that point, when I spoke to you, I hadn't met her, spent 5 days with her. To cut long story short, we realized that we're not romantically compatible. But when I was with her, it was just flow. It was just so easy. It was just like this, no resistance. If I went left, she went right. If I went right, she went left. This automatic knowing of how that person works and thinks, where you can just adapt and flow. And I've never experienced anything like it before. This easy flow. And we got into a deep conversation about astrology and the planets and the moon, and how all this resistance from my past was about allowing me to become whole, so that when I present myself to the twin flame as my whole self, then I would either be compatible in the way that we'd have to be, or not. And if not, then we decide where we go from that period. And the conversation we had was so deep and powerful that I would have never have had that conversation should I have gone to the pizza shop, or the shitty kebab shop on the corner. So the lesson is go with the flow, go with the feeling. There's a reason why we didn't go there. There's a reason why we went to the one where I met you instead, where I had this most profound conversation.
Yes, exactly. It's the synchronicities, which are like the little golden crumbs, but we just got to be aware of being able to see it and trusting to follow it. It always leads us to the right place.
Yeah,
and it
so
did the Greek restaurant. we needed to meet.
Yeah, so what experiences have you had where that has happened to you, where you don't plan to go somewhere and do something, and then by out of chance, the most incredible experience happens?
Wow, I would say really like I've kind of lived my whole, well, the past 15 years of my life like that. I follow the synchronicities, and following the synchronicities, one of the most major life-changing synchronicity path was moving to Costa Rica. It was the synchronicities that led me there. It was just through a fellow astrologer that I was following for several years. And I was looking for a country to build a community. And I searched everywhere, absolutely everywhere. I had a huge checklist. I thought maybe Scotland because I grew up there, and we'd actually put in an offer on a house. And then synchronistically, that night, one of the astrologer that I was following suddenly said he lives in Costa Rica. And I went, hold on, I haven't checked out Costa Rica. That's the one country I didn't. And I did. When I was doing the research online, it ticked every single box. And probably one of the most important boxes was that a lot of the people who moved there specifically state that the people are very kind. And that was that's the thing I value highest in human beings. So I thought, I have to follow the synchronicity. So I told my husband. He was obviously quite upset because, we just traveled around the whole of Scotland for 6 months and actually had found a house and put in an offer in the Achill Hills, which is actually where the Highland spring water came from. But thankfully, by the next day, he'd booked the tickets. He trusted me enough, or the synchronicities enough. I'm not sure why. And yeah, it changed our whole life. We found our perfect home, the perfect amount of land to build the community, surrounded by other communities. And it was just the synchronicities. The moment we landed, it just like this, it started like intensifying. And then I remember we're walking around this particular community. And one of the chaps who was showing us around said, oh, there's a very famous astrologer that lives there. And I'm like, that's not the one that I was following that brought me here. And it was. But now he's one of my friends. And we're, we lived in that community for 4 years before we found our property. And now we're about 15 minutes outside. But it was, just synchronicities. And I'm still really here in the UK, just purely by synchronicities. I plan to, so it's everything, every day. I follow and I watch and I listen, whether it's animals, whether it's totem messengers, whether it's directly through a human being, or whether it's just because something's not quite flowing, because something doesn't flow, you're meant to have turned left. I'm like, oh, okay, I wasn't meant to go that way, we're going to go this way. And it's always magic.
Yeah, so the path of least resistance. I know that everything I want happens and will come. And if there is a slight resistance in front of me, most people, they will push it. And they will go down the wrong hole and the wrong hole and the wrong hole. And then it's like, why is life doing this to me? Blah, blah, blah. Well, as soon as there's a little bit of resistance, you're supposed to recognize it and go, okay, there's resistance. I now have to pivot and go either left or right. And the aim is to keep flowing where there's no resistance. So, for example, if I'm speaking to 10 people on a dating app, I message 10 people, do you want to meet up? And 9 don't respond. I don't reply twice. If one does reply, yeah, that sounds good. All energy goes on that person. The path of least resistance. When you're around, don't message again twice. If they come back saying I'm around Wednesday, fantastic. You meet. You have to keep flowing where there's no resistance, because there's a thing called, correct me if I'm wrong, it's like geo something, where depending on your energy vibration, you're supposed to be on the certain part of the earth with a certain resonance of your types of people, right? Don't know what it's called. It's geo something, right? So if you were supposed to be in Costa Rica at that point, then all the signs, which is just magnetic energies in front of you trying to pull you towards Costa Rica, your job is to recognize those magnets in the form of energy and feeling and end up in Costa Rica. Why? For a life lesson, for evolution within your soul, to find a partner, business partner, or something else out there that you don't know is out there until you get there. And people want to know where they're going first. And it's no. Trust that God has a plan. Whatever you want, he'll provide. If you don't want it, he won't give it to you. Go with the flow. And that is what's so exciting about life, where you are literally the blind, was it called the blind shepherd leading the blind sheep or something? Like, you're like, I don't fucking know. I spoke to this astrologer, he lives in Costa Rica. I told my husband, pack your shit, we're going. He's like, all right, fucking hell, we're going. She's had a download again, we've got to go. Yeah. And then you end up in Costa Rica. That is what's exciting about life, that you don't know what's going to happen, and everything falls into place perfectly, as if you were like, I go to a restaurant and I want a steak for a main course, I want garlic prawns for starter, and I want a cheesecake for dessert. You go there and they're like, Madame, we've got your garlic prawns and your steak and your cheesecake. You're like, well, fuck it, I wanted that. When you get out there, what you wanted in some form is there. So so if you can trust the process and enjoy the process of being blind, and then when you get there, the blindfold comes off and everything you want's there. That's an amazing, amazing, amazing way to live life that most people don't do, because they want to know where they're going, why they're going, and if they don't know, then they stay where they are, and then the universe just goes off without you. And now there's millions of signs and synchronicities that you've got to catch up on to get there. For you to be on that Instagram call with that astrologer to mention Costa Rica, you can't be cleaning the kitchen, you can't be picking the kids up from school, you can't be moaning about the husband not doing the bins, you can't be in the loft clearing out the shit which you should have done years ago. You've got to be here. So to get to that point of the Costa Rica call, there's so much you would have done unless you're already following the patterns along the way. So you are perfectly aligned where you need to be to get the next synchronicity.
Yes, exactly. It reminds me of that saying, be like water. And that's where, in the moment that you come across a little bit of resistance, you're not supposed, that's the indicator, go round. Exactly. But it's the unknown. I mean, I think our souls thrive on the unknown, but I think our ego, and maybe to do with maybe the system or our education, kind of makes people afraid of the unknown. But when we're like, as you said, it's actually fantastic. It's one of the most exciting things in the world. Every single day is the unknown, and it's just, and it always just presents at the right, it will always give you just exactly what you need at the right time. Like you have to have faith in your abilities. It's it will never give you more than you can't handle. It always works out. I think it's the only way. It's like it's the adventure where we enjoy every moment because we have no idea what the next moment's going to bring. So it keeps us in the moment. We actually automatically become mindful because we become aware of our surroundings, aware of the messages coming through up to us. So you have to be in the moment. If you're sitting in worrying or in anxiety in the past or in the future, you'll miss those messages. And especially if you don't have faith in yourself. It's the faith, the trust that you heard right, even if no one else saw that message, because they usually don't.
So obviously I haven't spoke to you before, but when I was in Portugal, I did LSD for the first time, and I never planned to move out. In my head it's going to be, when I'm a millionaire, then I'll move out. So I took LSD, and the 8-hour trip with me on my back thinking non-stop for 8 hours was like having Tourette's again. And the message of the trip is I need to step into my masculine and move out. So about my parents' dynamic, my mum is in a masculine mothering me, so my dad steps down into his feminine and I'm in my feminine. So if I'm not there, my mum steps into her feminine, my dad becomes in his masculine, and as a result of me not being there, I'm in my masculine. So it was about me moving out. So I plan to move out within the next 6 months as a result of that trip. So that LSD reprogrammed my brain to want to move out, which 3 days before that trip I never would have ever done in my life. Along with that, I got food poisoning at the airport, so I had the shits for the first 4 days, and my twin flame was mothering me. And it was like, shit, this is the first time I've been away. First time I've been away ill without my mum there to bring me up tea or coffee from downstairs, right? And it's like, wow, this is the real world. They're not going to be here forever. I've got to learn to deal with my own shit by myself. Whether I'm ill, whether I've got COVID, whether I broke my leg, I can't just rely on my mum or my partner to do it. And that was all playing in. She's mothering me. I can't be with somebody who mothers me. I want to be the provider. So how do I do that? Step up into the masculine role. So all these little small things were just one by one. She was showing me like a twin flame does without even realizing, without even trying to show me. She's reflecting the masculine energy that I was lacking, because my mum was the masculine and I was the feminine. And then through the end of the trip, it was, I got to move out. But the point is that it actually felt right to move out. Whereas 3 days before, just a little chick at home, I can't leave out. I can't. So the power of these hallucinogenics, done with the right reasons and the right intentions, are absolutely life-changing.
Yes, they are. They're like, it's again another form, I suppose, of messages, like the hallucinogenic, or there's another word for it, which I can't remember right now. But yes, like that's also just another form of messages that opens up another sense of ours. And then another, it's able to like more have a direct way in, possibly because our ego is off, away somewhere. So like it's opened up an avenue that's maybe a little bit more clearer for us. That's lovely, because when you actually feel something is right, that's all the energy, that's all you need. That's marvelous.
Because obviously, the energy that comes off of thought versus the heart and feeling is like 20 times more powerful in the heart and the body. Feeling it is very different to knowing it. When it's right, it will feel right, even though that probably is the right decision. You can't tell anybody to feel it, even though they know it. You've got to feel it. And that time only comes when, again, you followed enough signs along the way to get you to that point where you're now ready. Like the conversations I had before that trip was with somebody who lived in Lebanon and they left because of the war or whatever. And she was 30 years old, and she was saying how people in that part of the world, it's normal to live with your family until you're like married, until you're like 30, 35, until you're married. And we were saying how it's only England that 16-year-olds have a little argument with their mum and dad and they move out. And then they're depending on the system forever. And so she's like, it's absolutely normal to be living with your family until you're older. And then she was saying that she had broke a leg during COVID and then she had to do it by herself. And I was thinking, fuck, this is real adult shit. Like they're doing all this by themselves. There's no one there to help them. Yeah. Yes. I live like a king's life. I'm very fortunate. I've had it very safe and comfort. And if you're comfortable, there's no growth. As much as it's an easy life, there's no growth. There's no like real spiritual growth. So all these things are in my mind, and the trip just took over. Didn't plan to think about any of this shit, but that was what the trip was about. 8 hours of me thinking about the imbalance of masculine and feminine energy in my parents and their parents, and why their parents were like that and why they were like that, and how it all just came down to my parents and how I ended up with it. And then I had a basket of choice to continue the pattern or to break the pattern, to put it back in the natural order, or just to keep it in the order because it's easy. And again, timing for everything. Timing, trusting that flow.
The divine timing. It's always like the divine timing. Yeah, exactly. It's interesting because that masculine energy right now of individuation is happening for the whole world. So the North Node is in Aries, and the North Node represents like the soul's desire, like the future of where we're going. And that's sitting in Aries, which is about individuation, healing the inner masculine, the I will and self. I am able to. And so
I'm Aries. My moon, I think it's my moon is Aries. It's like my main one is Aquarius. My rising is Scorpio, rising Aries, or it's Aries, Scorpio, and Aquarius. It would make sense.
Oh, interesting. So it would basically, so this is happening for the whole world, but because your moon is in Aries, this will be more potentiated and intensified for you. But of course, like just the mother, the moon is represented. The mother is represented by the moon, and so if your moon is in Aries, that masculine healing is also associated with your mother. So
Absolutely.
it's
Absolutely. And interestingly, the last three women that, have come into my life, they're all Scorpio. So, if my, is it rising is Scorpio, whatever the other one is, like the Scorpio energy, the twin flame Scorpio, the other two is Scorpio. The first person I fell in love with was Scorpio. And all these people are the people that, looking back, I've had the deepest, closest connection with at those periods of time, compared to someone else who's another star. So it's pretty obvious that, not obvious, it seems likely that the person that I'll end up with will be a Scorpio. Would you say that makes sense if I'm a Scorpio rising?
Yes, so depending on exactly your degree of your ascendant, you'll probably have some Scorpio sitting in your 12th house and in your first house. So your first house, if their sun sign is in Scorpio, they'll be either sitting and potentiating and making your persona and your ego and your conscious more alive, or in your 12th house, which would be more like the subconscious connection where they're able to read your mind. And maybe the twin flame that you were talking about had her sun is sitting in the 12th house, and that would explain that you don't really need to speak. You can turn right and she knows to turn left, and da. So that's more of like a karmic connection, something that's more coming from the ether. So that would, yes.
So talk to me more about the Aries and the masculine related to the mother thing.
Okay, so the moon for everyone represents the mother, but your moon is in Aries. So you would also experience your mother as an Aryan style mother, which would be a masculine, very pioneer, go-getting, strong, more of the quintessential masculine energy. But that's how you would experience your mother. Not necessarily that she is, because of course you could have siblings and your sibling could say the moon is in Gemini. That sibling might not experience your mother the same way. Of course, because it's all depending on your synastry and the interaction between your relationship. But of course, like with the North Node right now, transits, that will be going across your moon. And so your sole intention of individuation, independentation, and healing the masculine within will have crossed your moon. So it's associated for deep subconscious home. The moon also represents your home, your roots, your ancestors. So all of that will be changing. And so it makes sense because that Aries North Node, I will, healing, that I can do this, crosses that, and you suddenly go, oh, mother, okay, now I've got to balance that. Home, that's changing. You're becoming, like you said, it's independent from your mum.
My question is, right, if everything is written in the stars and it's all scripted, it means that it was always going to happen at 31, not 25, 26, 27, which means that what you're talking about in terms of the moon being where it is, that technically wasn't last year or the year before or the year before or the year before. It is now. So my question is, when was it last like it is now? Just to confirm that no matter what I did, I was always going to be at home until 31, which basically means that we have no control over anything.
Well, it depends. So your birth chart is more like the orchestra piece. Say that there's Beethoven's Fifth Symphony. So that presents the piece, but it's up to us how well we play it. We can play it rubbish, we can play it beautifully. So it's not in control. It just creates it's the orchestra. And if we can play the trombone and we can turn left or we can turn right, but our free will always is above the stars. It's just showing you the weather. So along is coming hurricane season. So then you're able to, if hurricane season is coming, it might not be the best time to fly over to there. You can make informed choices. But it's up to you. You can still fly over there in hurricane season. And then there's cause and consequence, of course, which is karma and one of the main parts of what we're here to learn as the consequences of the causes that we initiated. And then we know next time, the hurricane season, we won't fly over there.
So the Aries moon thing now, when was it last like this?
So the North Node, and I think the nodal is a 19-year cycle, if I remember correctly. So that would have been 19 years ago the North Node would have crossed your moon again. So if you look back to what you were doing 19 years, again, it's spirals. So like what a teenager would be experiencing in individuation is not the same as a 27-year-old. It might be represented with, Mummy, I can go to school on my own. I don't need you to drop me off anymore. You know,
Jesus Christ. No, listen, there's a pattern. 19 years ago, right?
There's always a pattern.
So 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31. 12 years ago, I was diagnosed with Tourette's. 12 years ago was the time my mum's mum died, where she then became the masculine to look after her father, right? Because he was, you know, whatever, okay? So my mum's mum used to look after, my mum's mum was the masculine out of the dynamic. My granddad was the feminine, okay? Grandma died, mum became the masculine, looked after my granddad. I was a nightmare because the Tourette's was just being diagnosed, so she was having to deal with all the shit that I was doing, look after me, masculine, okay? During the trip of the LSD, these are the things that came up. When did my mum become masculine? When her mum died. When did my mum become masculine? When I got diagnosed with Tourette's. You got to step up and sort of just deal with all this shit. My son's a nightmare. I've got to fucking sort this out. School calling every 5 minutes. Masculine. Yeah. Okay? So fucking hell. That pattern of 12 years old, when that thing happened again, that's exactly when the masculine energy of my mum became, especially when she became masculine. I try to work out, when is she becoming a masculine more than a feminine? It was when I was 12, when her mum died, and I got diagnosed with Tourette's. That's fucking unbelievable, that.
Yeah, it's, I'm still amazed and still.
So it's coming back round and it's balancing back out.
It's the spiral. So that
Jesus
pattern
Christ.
is that same. And so now you're revisiting. It probably would have also, hit somewhere in your mum's chart for her mother to. You still doing her mother died. So something, because it happens in life. You know, like suddenly if a challenging time suddenly happens and there is no one else, like an actual, say, a masculine around that's able to look after the experience, the female steps up and she has to bring her masculine up. There is no way. It's, you know, it's a good thing. It's the only problem is that if once we don't need to be the masculine anymore and it's past, but yet it's like that, and then it becomes, instead of an adaptive response, like a maladaptive. But then the universe will push us and something else will happen.
But that's the thing, right? Now I'm stepping into my masculine, she'll go back into the feminine like she was before 12 years ago when her mum died and I got diagnosed with Tourette's. It's literally, as you say, if you're following the pattern of the storm, bring your brolly. I've always followed the pattern of the storm, so I brought my brolly. So, Jesus, I can't believe it. Fuck. Like they say, it's written in the stars. This is written in the stars. Like it's exactly what I went through in my head. When did she become masculine? 12 years ago. It's exactly what you said. Around 12 years ago, the astrology charts, whatever. That is absolutely incredible.
Yeah, this is why. I mean, it's timing for me. I remember I was studying all about the situation in the world, say about 15, 20 years ago, but I didn't have a date. But I knew that something was happening, like this huge change that we're all going through, you know, like what's happening, like the system is breaking down and the new earth is being built. But I didn't know when it was going to start happening. And then I started studying astrology. Yeah, this is about 15 years ago. And suddenly I had a date. The same information that I had researched independent, this is a word that I can't say, came up within the astrology world. They have been talking about this situation for about 40 years, which was the great Saturn, Pluto, Jupiter conjunction of 2020, January the 12th, 2020. And as we all know, what occurred a few weeks after that?
COVID?
Well, yes, the whole world suddenly, everything was all seemingly quite calm, and then boom. But then I had a date. So that's one of the great things about astrology. It's something, well, there's three great things. One is when you see your life reflected in the stars, you can't help but know you're meant to be, that you're meant to be here. You can't help to see that the divine and everything is interconnected and we all one. Because when you read your birth chart, it will tell you things only you know. You know, those tiny little parts of you that no one really knows and no one's ever really, you haven't even put words to it. But when you see it, you're like, whoa. But to see that and then to see your life, it gives you a sense of, well, I suppose, grounding and meant to be-ness and the divine timing. But it's incredible that the other, what was it that I was going to say? Oh, so this is slightly on a separate part, but something else that I particularly, it was a gift that was an unexpected gift for me, because astrology, when you understand like all the archetypes, it kind of stops the miscommunication or the misunderstanding of relationships, because you can see through it more as just an energetic incompatibility. It's not really anything to do with the person. Say, I'll give you an example. Say Mercury. So Mercury represents the way we think and how we communicate. So say somebody's Mercury is in Gemini. So Gemini is one of the most fastest energies. It's always connecting. It's always moving from one thing to another, joining the dots, making patterns. But say somebody else's Mercury is in Taurus. Slow, steady, solid, it's grounded. So when those two people speak, they might not be able to have such a conversation that flows. But then what was wonderful about knowing that the astrology is that you wouldn't take that personally. You wouldn't misunderstand, oh, he's just slow, because you can start to see this is just another energy. It's like you wouldn't complain when a cheetah couldn't speak to a wolf, for example, because that's just who they are. There's nothing personal about it. So it's like, really, I feel it would be one of the biggest cures for the problems today, which I think result from a lot of miscommunication and just misunderstanding of just other human beings, but that really, it's wonderful. It keeps giving.
Yeah, so that goes back to, we're all in the wrong place when we're not supposed to be here. Like, we had many signs. The signs are all over the place, but yet we're just avoiding them. So when we're supposed to be over there, we're still here. It's almost like, being in Africa and it's suddenly gone from being really hot to really cold and the food's starting to die. Well, now we have to migrate to somewhere else where there's heat. If you stay there and put up an igloo or a mud hut and then, you get flooded, then you miss the sign. The sign was the berries were drying up off the tree. The swamp was, the fish was drying up. We should have gone. So we're all staying stagnant in our own swamp water when the signs are there and we're not listening to them. And then before you know it, you don't even know where you were lost. There's just so many signs ahead. You don't even know which way, left, right, straight, up and down. You just don't even know because you're not even looking for the signs. You're not even following the signs. You're just staying where you are. So, it's very hard for people to suddenly come out of a pattern that they shouldn't have been in. They don't even know how they got here. They don't even know where to start, where to go, because they're just so deep in a hole. Their friendship group, their partner, their boss at work, their neighbors, everything's magnetic. Like, my next door neighbors are literally a duplicate of my family when they moved in 30 years ago. Exactly the same energy of the children, the same energy of the parents. It's literally a clone. I'm listening to them talking to their kids and how the kids talking back. It's literally me and my dad. It's not even a joke. And so that's when I understood we are guided to where feels homely, meaning what feels right based on the energy match of other people. The same as you go into a bar and you feel the vibes are off, and then you go into like a place like Ecstatic Dance London and vibe feels good.
Yes.
If the vibe doesn't feel right before you put the offer down on the house, you're not going to. If the vibe feels right, then you will. We're literally sharing the same brick wall. They are literally a duplicate of what we were as a family growing up.
It's like the two.
And I'm like, fucking hell. What's the chances of this being random? It's not random. We're just following the energies until it feels right. And because it's already written and scripted, our job is to move until it feels right, and we will be back home. Meaning where the planets are supposed to be at specific times, they will be. And that is also something very profound I'm aware of.
Yeah, you've reminded me, there was an incredible documentary called, I think it's called The Heart Revolution. And in it, they were showing that two amazing things. So it was the Heart Math Institute, and they were doing studies And it showed that I think it's about an 80% correlation of correct, that the heart was able to predict what type of image was going to come up on the screen, like 10 or 15 seconds before the image, which basically means our heart can literally see into the future. Before that image came up, our heart gave the signal to the brain, which can be read, whether something disgusting was going to come up or something that would make our hearts, warm. And it was able to 80% accuracy. And there was another incredible thing, and it took only 3 weeks. So it's a course I think they're doing in the US. And I don't know if it would work for the same for adults, but they were doing a test for children, because children are a little bit more still open and more malleable too. And so for 3 weeks, she had a complete blindfold on, and they were teaching her how to see with her heart. Obviously, the first week, it's all like nothing's happening. By the third week, there's a picture in front of her, and she's got completely blindfolded. And this little girl goes, "That's yellow. That's got a long beak. That's a swordfish." Well, it's a swordfish, a yellow swordfish. It was just... So we've got some other sense. Now it's like more than just the 5 senses or the 6th sense. I think we now have that 7th sense that's coming about, which is our heart sense, which correlates with the feel right. We know something's right because we say, well, it feels right. That's that sense coming into action, but we're now proving it scientifically that it's not just an emotion. It's tangible and can be measured via like machines. I'm hoping that this is where, because once we're able to navigate life just through our heart, I think we'll have no problems whatsoever.
That's the thing, right? Imagine not having to think about any decision and just going with a feeling in real time, yes or no. No thoughts, just yes or no. So I was speaking to somebody, can't remember who it was, the other day, and they were saying how he was tuning in to this girl locked in a cell in the middle of Delhi, Dubai, or whatever, right? He's in England. He's just visioning this person in this cell, locked in the back of a cafe in Dubai or Delhi, right? So he trusts the feeling. He doesn't know where it's coming from. Is it right or wrong? He books a plane ticket. He goes to the location where he's seeing this girl, and he's got no data, nothing. He's just going with feeling, okay? And he finds this cafe in this place, for example, in Delhi, and he knocks on the door and he says, "By the way, I've come to get the girl." They're like, "What are you on about? There's no girl here." He's like, "There's a girl out the back. I've come to get her." Yeah, and so he fights his way through. Eventually, he finds that there's a girl in the back who has been like kidnapped for months or whatever. So this person was able to remote view this girl in a cupboard from the opposite side of the world with no information on where the fuck this person is, just going with feeling. It's almost like he's looking on the airport flights. He's like, "Nope, doesn't feel like America. Nope, not Canada. Delhi, that's where she is." He's going with feeling. It's almost like code is in 0, 1. So you go 0 or 1, 1 or 0, 0, 1, 1 or 0. So it's America, 0, Canada, 0, Delhi, 1. Then you go to Delhi, and then there's loads of cafes. Is it this one? 0. Is it that one? 0. Is it that one? 1. We are the ability to communicate by feeling. And Darren Brown in the UK, he's done many shows where he does this. So he's painting, he gets somebody to paint in France, and then he blindfolds other people, and he basically trains them how to remote view what's on the image. And obviously Darren Brown can do this, but his shows are about showing that we're all the same and that anyone can do it. So he's getting people to remote view what's in the box, what's in the cupboard, what he's drawing in real time. So Darren Brown will be drawing something on the board, and then he'd get the person to say, and vice versa. The guy's doing something and Darren's like writing exactly what it is, like a swordfish with a yellow jacket and a pink balloon out of its mouth. So there is many proof from these magicians that this is possible. The difference is that can we train ourselves to also do it? And by what you just said about the 3-week story, yes, you can. The same as you can learn to be psychic by learning to tune into what's actually the right energy versus what you think is the right energy. So differentiating between pure stream of energy versus anything that's influenced. So that's very cool.
Yeah, it's going to make things so much more, incredible. You reminded me, actually, because in reality, there's no time space. They did this. It's correlating with what you're saying, because they took some cells out of a human being and they put it in a petri dish beside that human being. And then they gave him some kind of pain shock. Those cells in the petri dish immediately reacted as if they were still in the body. But then they took that petri dish hundreds of miles away, and it still happened the moment they touched. So this proves in scientific methods that really there's no time space. We're just able to, it's like that quantum world where everything happens.
Quantum entanglement.
In quantum entanglement, exactly. You know,
so
and
this stuff is all online.
Yes, this is all online.
Yeah, you have to send me this stuff, because this stuff I need to start getting into again. Like, just stuff that just gives you like this enormous drive and power for life, like this life force of fucking hell. That's so amazing that just by hearing that story, you just charge up.
It's like the as above, so below. It's all so interconnected, you know, and it's just.
So they took the cells to another country, and then when that person had pain or whatever, the cells responded.
Reacted immediately, exactly the same time, which proves there's no time space. And they're connected. We never become disconnected. It's all kinesiology proves this as well. You know, muscle testing, how we could use kinesiology to answer a question for, say, a human being in Delhi. And you will be able to get the answer, because it's using binary again, 0 or 1, or strength of the muscle versus weakness. So like a no rep was basically our muscles kind of become a little bit weaker, a no. And so we know it's a no. And with a yes, the muscles become stronger. Or you can use another method of leaning forward for a yes, leaning backwards for a no, because we go towards what is positive and we come away from what's negative. Again, binary, 0, 1, yes, no. But it's the same thing, like I kind of think that really what's happening is that we're tuning into the Akashic records, which is the quantum entanglement. Akashic records is the book of everything that's ever been and everything that ever will be. Every single thought, word, action is written there. So we're able to connect our muscles, or like our intelligence in our body is able to connect to that Akashic records and be able to answer questions, say, for that girl in Delhi. It's just... I've got goosebumps now.
Right, we will end that there. So we've got something to start on next time. So is anything going to promote or plug?
I don't know. I was thinking about maybe, I am building a community, a self-sustainable, holistic, organic, biodynamic community in Costa Rica, selling plots based on the yin and yang and the masculine and the feminine and the Venetian principles, and learning about all the wisdoms, the esoteric wisdoms and the exoteric wisdoms. And I'm bringing out a new astrology product, which will help, albeit as a tool, which will help people basically from almost a beginner, really from a beginner, to be able to actually start reading their own chart that quickly. So yeah, that will hopefully be out by the end of this year.
Okay, and if you had one day left to
according to the synchronicities and the flow.
Of course, if it's meant to be. Yeah. If you had one day left to live, what is the one thing that you would tell the rest of the world?
Oh, I love you. I've loved you. I will always love you. And I can't wait to be back again.
Thanks for listening. If you like this episode, please remember to subscribe, turn the bell notifications on, like the episode, and comment below. And if you want to follow me on Instagram, it's YesKingOliver. Take a look at the other videos to your side. And if you just want to listen to this podcast, you can do so on Apple and Spotify and most other platforms by going to talkwitholiver.com.